We can talk about this dream of smart cities or digital twins or this technology integrated, and it only happens if companies collaborate.
There's a huge opportunity to improve on the workflows that they're doing.
I think it's really shining a light on reality capture data and all the use cases.
I need to have immediate input on what that will do downstream.
Do away with, as we look at industry standards, like
For us to communicate with each other.
outcome-based engineering.
Data is the piece that has been really missing. So I'd love to start with introductions, and then we'll jump in and kind of talk about some technology, where the industry's at, and have a fun chat here. So thanks for joining. Let's go ahead and start over here.
Sure. I'm Micah Callough. I'm the technical director for AEC, Architecture, Engineering, and Construction, as well as environmental consulting at Esri. I came from the industry and helped Esri to start to build up a sector, started around 2019. And we've really grown and focused on building a group that's focused specifically on project work that AECs do. And I've been heavily involved in the partnership with Autodesk.
Awesome.
And I'm Eric DesRoche. I'm the global director for our infrastructure business unit. And we define infrastructure as transportation, so design and construction of road and highway, rail, airports. We also focus on the water industry, all things water from cloud to sea, and land development, and are opportunistic in other industries. And the second hat I wear is I manage our executive engagement with Esri in the partnership.
Awesome. That's been an exciting partnership, I think, to many people in the industry over the last few years. I'd love for you guys to share a little bit of perspective on where is the industry at right now? Like it's been a crazy journey, really, the last several years of technology advancements, new technologies coming out, faster mapping, more aerial LiDAR. We're looking at integration of platforms like GIS and Autodesk. Where is the industry today?
Well, I'll start. We view the industry, when you say industry, as the AEC industry. So think of architects, commercial buildings, the E being the civil engineer, of course, and construction. So within AEC, I would say we're at a state of convergence of many technologies and the advent of many technologies that help drive efficiency into all of our built environment and the many assets that these industries demand. So in a word, Matthew, I'd say convergence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I describe it as trying to build these truly connected data environments. The demands are growing on the industry, on the AEC side of things. They're often driven towards the billable hour, the billable dollar, doing things efficiently and effectively. They're really beginning to understand the value of the data that they've been collecting and working with for a long time, and it's truly separated and put into a lot of different piles and is very project oriented. Whereas we're beginning to start to see them step back and say, what we do has value even beyond the project that we're doing. And they're starting to then innovate and even go to market with different approaches around how they do their business.
Yeah. No, I come from the service provider side, so I'm used to using scanners, using drones, and I've started seeing that shift over the years, especially as I do a podcast and I talk to a lot of different people of, historically, we always did little projects. There's a single job where someone's in a facility and you got to go scan a tank because they want to replace the tank, and then that data just kind of got archived or put away and it wasn't used anymore.
Yep.
And someone would go out to the same spot again next week for another replacement that was next door to it. And I kept seeing that over the years. I was like, this data is just getting wasted. And I feel like we are at that point where I hear these conversations of large organizations saying, okay, we've done the project by project enough. How do we keep that data? How do we get more information out of that data? How do we manage large assets? Companies like Amazon or ExxonMobil, where there's thousands of locations, and the data is the piece that has been really missing. People are not extracting the value that comes out of that. And I think that also creates challenges with trying to now scale some of these new innovative technologies. What are some of the challenges you see with where we're headed or where we're at today with technology implementation?
Well, when you message the data problem, it's been with us for decades, right?
Yeah.
And if I think of the AEC industry, we tried to, and have successfully attacked this with what we call BIM, Building Information Management. And if you think of BIM as a process, it's to help with the data handover among the various members of a project and all the different stakeholders as you go throughout the complete life cycle, from planning, design, construction, and then operations and maintenance. So the problem of data loss and data handover has been with us a long time, and I think it's solved to a large degree with a BIM process for our engineering service professionals and construction service professionals. But in comes this next concept with digital twin.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe at Autodesk, if you deploy a BIM process across your projects and you preserve that data, the outcome or the deliverable from that process is a digital twin.
Yep.
And it's not a static creation or representation of the real world. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly updated. And it's what you'll hear us call existing data capture, which is really reality capture.
Yep.
And so these kinds of technologies like drones and better scanning and LiDAR and high-resolution imagery are all input sources into that data processing pipeline to help us do a better job and to drive efficiency throughout the life cycle. So we're the recipients of all this great work that's going on here at the show by these many vendors and so forth. And also in our partnership with Esri, and what they call reality mapping is certainly feeding that pipeline as well. So I think the challenge, to answer your question, the challenge from our standpoint for our customers is how do we really squeeze all the value out of this information in real time for many, many use cases?
Yeah.
So Micah?
Yeah, I extend on that. For us, it's location, right?
Yeah.
Like we're a company that has been mapping the world for a long time. And we realize now, especially in the AEC market, that if we can get a common location as the language that ties things together, it starts to make joining that data that we have a hard time connecting, it's that much more valuable and easier to connect the data, because it's the one thing that everything has in common outside of these like very specific schemas and plans that they don't scale. They just don't scale. So we really see location as the key. And then by bringing location to bear, we get to bring the knowledge and the breadth of the information we have to that BIM model. So bringing GIS to that BIM model, we provide context so that we're not designing a bridge or a road or a building without an understanding of how it's going to influence society around it, how it's going to be taken into the environment, how it's going to be impacted from a sustainability perspective, how it fits into flood planning for future city development. Basically, we want to think about things differently, because we can't keep doing it the way we've been doing it for all these years. And the opportunity there is you have to have the data to see that and understand that problem. And it's been a problem because everybody does location in their own kind of way.
Yeah.
Different coordinates. I'm local, you're this, I'm that. So we really got to start to say, hey, we've got to start to drive that together in order to be able to connect that information. And that's really at the center of Esri's mission.
That's awesome. For those that maybe don't even know, I'd love to, you guys are the partners between Autodesk and Esri. Give the short pitch of what is that collaboration? Why did that happen? What's some of the vision of you two working together?
Well, I think you said in the beginning, it's been a while now. It has. It's been a little over 6 years since we announced the partnership. And I think the business thesis still holds today from day one, and that was the convergence of BIM data with GIS data.
Yep.
And as Micah was saying, that's a marriage made in heaven, because you're bringing the local environment and the real world context and location awareness together with the very detailed engineering models that are used to design and build our assets. So that's sort of the genesis of the partnership. And we've done a lot of great things at the desktop level, the cloud level. Now we're doing work on the platform. But there's still a lot of work to be done as we bring these data sets together across the entire life cycle. And data's the new oil, right? It's everywhere, and how you manage that data, as we were saying in the beginning, and drive efficiency is paramount for both companies. And we're doing it with the customer in mind in a lot of use cases and feedback from customers, both through Esri and Autodesk.
Awesome. I'd love to hear some thoughts. Another hot topic right now, which I think is a piece that will help with getting more data, more value out of data, is some thoughts around AI. and the future of it being integrated into these platforms and being able to use it for value out of data.
Yeah, it's definitely been a hot topic for us. We just had conversations about this the last couple days. We collect all this imagery, we collect all the LiDAR, we do the reality mapping and the reality scanning. This whole conference is really centered around. But we really need to create outcomes with that information. And we need to make the workflows more intelligent, right? So if I'm trying to understand where I put a retention pond, I need to have immediate input on what that will do downstream, right? And that is in the design, that is in the environment, that is in traffic flow, that is in emergency response, right? So there's a lot of things that people just don't think about because their job is often, oh yeah, I've got the project, I have to deliver this thing. All I'm trying to do is get the drawings out in order to build this building, right? Like, we don't really think about the broader picture of what's going on. But now that's changing. The customers are demanding that this be done. The governments are starting to demand that these things be thought about. So AI is really at the center of that because we can't scale people to do that at this point in time. We really can't. And AI is not a job taker. It's a job accelerator in my mind and an opportunity creator. We talked about this in our session earlier, right? Like understanding where things are coming from and having context and be able to our adults, we can make the decision. If I'm the professional engineer running the project, I will make the right decision to use the right tools. AI is one of those things in the toolbox that we should be looking at more often than not to try to accelerate some of that stuff where we have labor issues.
Yeah, to add to that, I would say we have to build better, and that connects to sustainability, which is top of mind for all of us, as Micah said earlier. We also have to do more with less because there's a wealth of opportunity, but there's a shortage of labor in any country you want to talk about. And so how do we drive efficiency? And AI is a means by which we can do that, but we're not trying to replace the human here.
Yes.
We're trying to, for example, at Autodesk, there's a couple of examples I can point to. A scripting language, Dynamo, which is in some of our hero products like Civil 3D, allows the designer to actually take care of all those boring, repetitive tasks, like thinking about designing a highway project and you're putting guardrails down or a rail system or something. So another one that's closer to the buzz around this conference is once you collect all this very rich reality capture data via drones or aerial photography or LiDAR systems, stationary scanners, how do you take the information off that platform in whatever format and actually derive value from it? So the automatic or semi-automated extraction of features and attributes for all our use cases. And there's a lot of great work being done that I would classify that as AI as well. And to us, it's evolving. For us, it's evolving as what you'll hear us say, outcome-based engineering. Knowing the outcome you want from the get-go and using all of these tools and processes to try to drive to the desired outcome.
And it's the repetitiveness, right? Like stormwater, they'll do impervious surface mapping at city scale and spend days, if not months or more, using traditional orthophotography methods to extract that and digitize it. Right now, we have a free model in the Living Atlas of the World, our spatial data repository, that can run on any city at any imagery and basically output those polygons very, very quickly. And we give customers that, and they can then train it on their own data and accelerate it. So we really want people to see that there's a huge opportunity to improve on the workflows that they're doing, and that buys them time to really move on and do the more important work that they need to be doing.
Yep. I often get asked, as I talk with a lot of people, what do you think the next big technology is? And my answer thus far is, I don't care what's next. We have so much great technology now. I believe one of our biggest focuses needs to be continuing to just integrate and utilize the ecosystem of technologies, the control process, the right sensor for the right type of collection and process into a platform that can extract the data that we need for the right type of, engineer or architect. Or I think there's a lot of work to still be done on education of the ecosystem in whole. What are some things that you guys would say if you were asked, what's the next few years look like? What's 5 or 10 years out? What are some technologies or processes you believe that we'll see some massive change in that time frame?
Well, I've got 2 answers. The first is, I think it's a most exciting time to be a architect, an engineer, a service provider into our AEC industries, because let's face it, around the world right now, we have generational level spending. There's more money than ever before going into our built environment and there has to be when you think of urbanization, population growth, and building with sustainability in mind, as we said. So it's a very exciting time to be in the industry and be providing services and technology to it. When it comes to technology itself, I'm a little bit like you. I'm not really looking for the next shiny object. I'm looking for how we can leverage all the different technologies across various industries.
Yeah.
If you think of industrialized construction, for example, there's a lot of applications of that within our transportation and water industries that we're just starting to scratch the surface on. If you look at some of the things that are going on in the entertainment industry, visualization, AR, VR type things, there's a lot of use cases and applications for that within our AEC industries that we're exploring as well. So to me, it's really comes back to that first word of convergence, and how can you leverage connecting and taking advantage of all these great things that are going on around the world for our particular industries.
Yeah, and the same way as you got to look at what we already have. We still have a lot of people out collecting data on paper.
Yes.
Right. let's just be honest, right? Like, that still happens a lot.
Yep.
Deeper in the technology stack side, I think that something that we're already doing is going to become more prevalent. It's the idea of service-based connecting of data. So less about moving big files around, sending hard drives to each other, trying to do things the old-fashioned way, and more like thinking about how do I make that data and how do I connect it so that the consumer can consume it in the way they wish to consume that data, right? So when Autodesk is doing Revit and building a building, I'm interested in, I don't need to know the bolts and the nuts and all the things that they're doing and the sequencing of how that's going to be built. I'm interested in the floor layout, some of the primary structures, stuff that I'm going to do for future mapping or development of that facility. So I might say how many floors are in the building, how many rooms are going to be occupied. I don't need the Revit file for that. What I need is the service that tells me that information, right? So that I can bring into my platform, do my analysis, and spit back a result. I'm seeing more and more of the movers in the industry start to go that direction. And I'm seeing more willingness for us to communicate with each other in that way. And I think that's being driven by things like the idea of digital twins, like what Eric talked about earlier. It's just pushing us to say, we need to connect this data, and we don't always want to see it in the way that, this group sees it or that group sees it. We need to see it in our own way, in our own light.
You know, Micah hit a nerve there for me on something I wanted to say too. We always face our customers with this conversation around digital transformation.
Yep.
And it's a fairly long journey, and different companies are at a different point in that journey. But as we think of the future and how we're going to put this all together to drive the efficiencies that we need, I think we've come full circle. For years now, we've dealt with files, file structures, import, export, and all of these messy things we're trying to do away with as we look at industry standards like IFC as an example. And really the partnership with Esri and Autodesk is all about connected workflow and interoperability to make it easier for our customers to use the richness of both our capabilities and data sets. So I think you'll hear from us things like granular data and how it's stored in these cloud environments, and how you won't subscribe to a desktop version of your software tomorrow. You'll basically be using consumptive services to get your answers from a cloud environment with all this data and metadata associated with it. So a pipe looks the same to a water engineer inside a water treatment facility as it does to a civil engineer laying it in a subdivision, or to a building engineer inside a building. So a pipe is a pipe is a pipe. You'll hear from us.
That's great. Yeah, it's exciting to think about where we're at. I feel like we're on this curve right now where the technologies have been growing, scanners have been growing, LiDAR sensors, 360 photo and video. Over the last few years, I feel like it's been on a slow increase. And I feel like we're right at this point that there's quite a bit of a ramp up where, even at something just like a scanner. A few years back when I was starting scanning, nobody was asking for scanning. Most of the people that were doing scanning were doing it because they saw a need, they kind of bought it, and they were integrating it in their own service. And now we're getting to the point that industries see the value, and now they're demanding it of, hey, if we're doing an equipment replacement in a refinery, we're demanding survey, scan, model, clash detection, whatever that process is. And in the same, you go to a hospital renovation, above ceiling scans, models. It's getting to the point that the value is being seen and the volume is increasing so much. But I do still feel like out of all the companies I talk to, it seems like if I had to throw a percentage, I would say 15% of the projects that could be really utilizing this data are fully utilizing it. I feel like there's so much room for growth where we're getting to even a construction job as an example. Historically, you go out and scan it once, you make a model, they're doing the design work, and that's kind of it. And now we're getting to that point of, okay, well, what if we keep doing more data? We're going out and scanning during, we're doing it for QC, we're scanning at the end for as-bills, which is creating so much data. But it's exciting to see that adoption continue to grow.
Well, that's where it becomes really critical that you understand where that data came from, what's the integrity of that information, how is it intended to be used, and that you have a platform that can kind of bring it together and communicate it across multiple platforms.
Yep.
If you have a lot of, scanner and their data, and everything's kind of kept separate, we're going to be exactly where we're at a couple years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the engine that's driving that is really cloud enablement. The processing power we have today, the storage we have today, the connectivity we have today to move information around. And now that all of that is coming of age, I think it's really shining a light on reality capture data and all the use cases and the real-time applications of it. So a good runway ahead in terms of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts maybe as we start to wrap up. I love talking about future. I know we still are like, look, we care about today. We care about the technology. But I believe if we look at the integration of all of these tools and we look at the value that comes out of maybe the future of digital twins, I believe every industry, every asset, almost every asset on earth, every facility, every building at some point is going to get to that process that is the normal, that there is a living digital twin of nearly every asset on earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's always easy for us to gravitate towards the built environment and the assets that we have created for humanity. But let's not forget about the natural environment either.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of our partnership with Esri as well. Like we talk about location awareness, building with the local environment in mind. But yeah, digital twin is I think a phrase that's just going to go away, and it's just going to be common nature for us to look at a computer monitor and see a representation of the world we live in and the assets that we use every day.
I think the expectations are already there in a lot of cases. Customers are like, look, I want to look at the globe. I want to zoom into the city. I want to see the buildings. I want to they want these things there. They can envision the future themselves. And we've set the stage by putting the pieces and parts around them. So they're like, well, why isn't it just easy to do that all, right? Like it's hard to bring that all together. But like Eric said, for us, it's a lot about that natural world, that fabric of what's going on around it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so understanding the land use, looking at things like sea level rise and climate change and heating effects. We've done a lot of work with the U.S. government and put out a number of sites that are looking at what's this geography going to look like in 5 to 10 years based off of these predictions, right? And that's constantly changing. We're doing a lot of work around that because it's not about the one building or the one bridge. It's about how we do this kind of collectively together to try to get better in the long run. And so that's going to be the pattern I think we see.
Let's face it, if we were sitting here 10 years ago, you'd be asking us something about smart cities.
Yeah.
Well, that buzzword has kind of faded a little bit on us, but now we're actually making great headway towards bringing GIS information together with engineering and BIM.
Yep.
We're creating digital twins of individual assets, but then we're connecting them to their adjacent assets. And over time, as that keeps evolving, we will have a smart city.
That's a smart city, yeah. We're getting there.
We're breaking down the barriers in that regard too. Like there's always been this, Esri, what we do is not design and engineering or in construction. It's not what we do, right? And we acknowledge that. So we fit together really well because we're trying to understand what's going on in the world around us, right? So we've started to break down those barriers, and us being partners has broken down barriers in many other organizations. And we're still seeing it. We still have to do a lot of work around communicating and collaborating and introducing the BIM team to the GIS team. But I think that work is worthwhile. That's literally why I came over to Esri. That's
incredible. Yeah. I use this quote often because I think that it's relevant to all of us innovators is, Abraham Lincoln, I think, has attributed this quote of the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Yeah.
And it's companies like you guys, Esri, Autodesk, and many other vendors here, and even the providers that take these tools and figure out best ways to use them, that we can talk about this dream of smart cities or digital twins or this technology integrated. And it only happens if companies collaborate and make those tools and make those steps forward. And it's great seeing collaboration like the two of you coming together, where historically more separate, now together, saying we can do more through collaboration. And that's one of our goals with RCN is we're building a community. We're trying to pull together more conversations with people that maybe historically haven't been on the same conversations, have panel discussions about this, because I think that increasing the feedback loop of multiple businesses and multiple industries and bringing different perspectives, I think is another thing that can help us accelerate and increase the benefits that are coming out of all the innovation that's happening.
Yeah, and absolutely. I would say our customers are demanding it.
Yeah, most definitely.
There's no complacency. They're demanding us to get better and better at how we bring all this together. So
every time we take us one step, they want 4.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate both your guys' time. As we start to wrap up, I'd leave it to, if there's any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience today from this conversation as we wrap up.
No, from my standpoint, I would just echo what I said before. Very exciting times, a wealth of opportunity, a wealth of existing technology that we can leverage, and the advent of new technology and new ways of working. And again, the future's in front of us for sure.
It really is.
Yeah, on my end, I'd encourage people to take what we're doing here in the partnership and take that as a model to look beyond the silo that they work in, and see how they can start to understand the language of other people, whether that's if you're delivering to an owner-operator, understanding how that data is going to land in their backyard, or working with another department in order to collaborate, or even having the GIS and BIM people talk to each other. It is well worth it to stop and take that time to understand each other a little bit before telling them what to do.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys talked about it earlier, this idea of we all have lack of resources, and we all are trying to get to the same goal of just improving processes, improving our environment, improving building processes. And collaboration and innovation and technology is a way to solve that problem.
Yep.
And so for people to step back and look at collaboration and being more open and breaking those silos, it's the game changer in being able to really scale that future vision. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and keep up the great work.
Yeah. Really appreciate it. Thank you both for joining.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Bye now.
Have a good one.